Aloha, it's Jim from Animal Ability. This video I'm going to show you squatting and hinging. Now the first thing I'm going to show you is the squatting portion, because that's most people are familiar with the term squatting. So I'm going to give you some basic guidelines. None of this is written in stone, but these are basic guidelines that pertain to squatting and hinging. So the first thing you want to remember is on both of these, you're going to contract your back muscles. Now you're going to use your back muscles isometrically to keep your core as stable as possible throughout the movement. So there's zero or at least minimal spinal movement during these. Now I'll show you the exceptions, of course, and all that. Okay, so the first thing with squatting is you want to try to have your feet as straight as you can, and you're going to turn out at the hips so that it keeps you from having valgus collapse when you squat. Now by having your feet flat on the ground and straight, you're also going to bias, even though you want your whole foot touching, you're going to bias the force towards your heels. Now, you're going to turn out, squat down, neutral spine, and up. From the side, neutral spine here, and up. Now, I'm going to show you the exception is when you're doing body weight or very, very light weight. You can move slowly down and you can let your tail tuck under, and then it comes out of the tuck and back up. Now you can do that. You usually do that for either when you're at the bottom stretching, doing a stretch like where you're sitting for 5-10 minutes in the squat position. But you can also use it for soft tissue. We're talking tendon and ligament resilience there, because basically that's pumping blood in there, and that's what you want. Now you do not want to do it ballistically fast, because that's just going to damage you, and you do not want to do it with heavy weight. That's against my recommendation for any of the exceptions on here that have to do with letting your spine come out of neutral for a weight-bearing exercise where the weight is working through your spine. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the basic squat that people are familiar with, and that's going to be the back squat. And I'm just going to use a sand-filled PVC pipe, and I am not a big fan of the back squat here, but I'm going to show it to you. So everything's exactly as it was before. I could even pull down on the bar to help contract my back, and usually you want to inhale down, exhale up. Inhale down, exhale up. Now you can do front squat. Inhale, exhale. Overhead squat. Inhale, exhale. Now if you notice with the bar, it was as close to center line as it could be. Now a little more in the front for the front squat, a little more in the back for the back squat. The overhead squat is kind of balance dependent, but it's still you're still gonna find your balance point, especially as you start adding weight to that overhead squat, because that is a full body exercise there, because you have to do it right. You cannot, the heavier the weight gets, the better your form has to be. Now, when you're picking up objects in the real world, and we're going to use this plyo box here as a demonstration. We're going to pretend like it's, you know, really, really heavy. So what I want to do is I don't really want to stand back here unless I have to. Since the handles are down the bottom that I'm sticking my fingers in, I want to go ahead and try to straddle this box with a little wider, that's one of the exceptions, for the stance as I can. Now I'm going to squat down since the handles are down the bottom. Then I contract my glutes and quads I've got some isometric contraction in the hamstrings and calves, and I stand up. Now, when I'm doing that, I'm still driving most of my weight through my heels, and I'm contracting my glutes and quads are the prime movers. My back is isometrically flexed. So that's an example of that. An example of having your feet flared out would be like if you had to pick up an object that you had, the only way you could grab it is from the sides like this, and pick that up. That's still a squatting motion, even though my hands aren't up here. All right, so there's your squat guidelines. None of that is set in stone. One thing I wanted to mention is you're using full range on most squats, but there is a place for partial range when it comes to like working your triple extension and you know, jumping and other explosive type movements. So you can do that, but mainly those things are really going to pertain to the next movement I'm going to show you, which is the hinge. Now that's a forgotten but very natural movement. It's just forgotten because most people have never experienced it, a situation where they had to do it in true life and without getting hurt. So they don't know how to use it. So the thing about the hinge is, and I'm going to show you a good drill that will help you learn the hinge. So you take a straight stick, you can get a broom handle or a dowel rod, touch it to the back of your head between your shoulder blades and your sacrum. Now, instead of maximum hip and knee bend, which you did on the squat, we're going to use maximum hip and minimal knee bend. Everything with the stance, knees turned out, on the whole foot biased towards the heel, back contracted isometrically. All those apply to this too. And you push your butt backwards, minimal bend in the knees. Now that's my limit for my range of motion without squatting, okay? So I go back, here. So I can practice that. And of course I would switch my hands just so I don't create an imbalance. Okay, so that was a good hinge drill you can practice. So now I'm going to show you a pure hinging motion. Now, we're going to pretend like this is a barbell, and I've taken it off a rack, or I've conventionally deadlifted it off the floor. So you try to break the bar. That'll help you contract your back. Then you're going to push your hips back as the bar slides down to somewhere on your shins. We don't know where because we don't know what your individual flexibility is. I am at my limit right now in my glutes and hamstrings. Any further and I'd be adding some squat in there. Now when I come up, I can extra squeeze my glutes. I'm using my glutes and hamstrings. I'm flexing them to come up, and then I'm giving them an extra squeeze at the top. Now, if I was doing a conventional deadlift, you know, I'm going to have to pick the bar up from, say, here. So what I do is I would hinge, get down as far as I could, and I can't reach the bar, so I'm going to have to squat until I can get that bar. So when I actually start the deadlift, I'm going to use my quads and glutes and isometrically hams. Then I get it up to the point where I can use my hamstrings and glutes primarily, and I deadlift it the rest of the way up. Now, normally you can deadlift quite a bit more than you can squat in general. Not with everybody, but that's the way it generally runs, because the motion is just biomechanically easier to lift heavier weight if you do it right. You've just got to have your back flexed correctly. So when it comes to picking up objects with a deadlift type movement, now you still want the weight towards the center of your body, center line of your body. So with this, I don't want to go here because then it's out in front of me. So if I can, I want to get as close as I can to the thing I want to lift. So I can actually straddle this, just like when you squatted. But I hinge because it's even heavier. It's so heavy I can't squat and lift it. And then I can deadlift it up. Now, we did the blended movement. I showed you a little bit of that for the conventional deadlift. So I'm going to show you that for a simulated Atlas stone, which we're going to pretend like this weighs, you know, a couple 100 pounds or more. So I straddle it once again because I can, and I hinge back. Now I'm at my limit here. I can't really grab the ball. Okay, so I squat down until I can. I get it up, and once I get it here, I can actually squat down under it again. So I've squatted and deadlifted, and I get it on my lap, and then I get here, and then I can squat it up. Okay, so that's a combination move there, where you're doing a squat and a hinge at once, and then you're getting yourself in a position where you can squat it up. Or if you only had to lift it up onto something like this, you can just deadlift it the rest of the way and put it onto the box. Same thing applies to a tire, where you're sticking your hands under the tire, squatting it up, and then deadlifting, and then doing your push for the flip. Another pure hinge movement is the kettlebell swing. Hinge, grab your kettlebell, see how it tilted back towards me? Then I hike it, okay, so this is more explosive of a movement. Okay, so after you've done the swing, you've got the Romanian deadlift, which is a more slower movement. The swing is more explosive, and that leads right into the broad jump or the vertical jump. Now, with those movements, those are more specialized, so it works better to use those more partial things like the Romanian deadlift and the kettlebell swing to actually build those movements and get stronger at it. So, thanks. Have a great day.